Welcome everyone to this presentation by the Career Development Center on how to make the most of your internship. The best approach when beginning an internship is to treat it like an extended job interview. Some employers will have the ability to extend job offers to interns, and if that's the case, your internship will serve as a trial run for you with that organization. For interns who don't have the option of being hired on at their internship site, it's very likely that your internship supervisor or other coworkers may serve as professional references for you in the future, so it's still critical that you make a great impression. So the first step to that is consistently being on time. Additionally, you always want to dress professionally and appropriately. I recommend erring on the side of more professional until you get a feeling for the office climate. It can be tempting when receiving an invitation to begin an internship to go out and purchase new clothing items. I recommend actually waiting, starting out by wearing the professional clothing that you have for interviewing until you get a sense for what the office dress code is. And then if you need to purchase new clothing items, you can make sure that they're going to be in line with that dress code. You never want to be the most casually dressed person. So if at your internship you look around and recognize that others are dressed more professionally than you are, that's going to be an invitation for you to adjust your professional wardrobe. It's also critical that you wear clothing that is comfortable and functional. So for example, high heels can look very nice, but if you have to do a lot of walking at your internship, that may not be the best option for you. Also, visible body piercings should be removed and tattoos should be covered up until you're familiar with the company's policies on those items. Let's take a moment to dig a little bit deeper into professional dress. Most professional environments are going to either go with the business casual side of things, or they're going to go with a more business formal dress code, or they could be somewhere in the middle. So again, I always recommend starting by erring on the side of a more professional dress code. So the standard for business formal is going to be a two-piece matching suit in gray, navy, or black. So something very conservative, nothing flashy. Part of the reason that I always recommend erring on the side of more business formal to begin with is that it's much easier to dress down something on the more formal side than it is to dress something up from the more casual side at a moment's notice. So if you recognize that maybe you didn't need to dress quite so formally, you could remove a blazer or remove a necktie, for example. However, if you show up wearing something more casual, it's really hard to change that in a moment's notice. So if you are working in a place that has a more business casual dress code, this would typically include items like professional dress slacks, potentially khakis. For gentlemen, the standard would be a professional long sleeve dress shirt. In some very casual environments, a polo shirt might be okay. For ladies, nice blouses, dresses or skirts that are knee length or below, and then comfortable and conservative shoes that are going to cover all or most of the foot. Another great way to really make the most of your internship is to set goals for yourself. So start by considering what you want to take away from this experience. What is it you want to learn? So thinking through if there are specific skills that you want to develop. Maybe there is technology that you want to learn to use while you're there. What sorts of accomplishments are you going to want to be able to put on your resume at the conclusion of your internship? And lastly, how can you challenge yourself during this opportunity? It's also important to be proactive during your internship. So this can happen in a number of ways. The easiest is to ensure that you are taking notes. Oftentimes, we assume that we are going to be able to remember more than we actually can. And when you are beginning a new internship or job, you're going to be receiving a lot of information. So it's important that you write it all down. And that way, if you don't remember, you can just look back to your notes. You won't have to go back to your supervisor and ask them to repeat information that they already gave to you. In a new opportunity like an internship, it's also important to ask questions. So if you need more information to understand something or to be able to do something successfully, don't be afraid to ask. But also, don't rely only on your supervisor. If there's information that you're able to get from other colleagues, go ahead and ask them. That way, you're not putting it all back on your supervisor. Oftentimes, training a new intern can be very time consuming, and your supervisor will really appreciate you being resourceful and seeing if you can get information in other places. Obviously, if there's something specific that needs your supervisor's direct, opinion on something, or if they're the only ones with certain information, obviously you'll want to go to your supervisor. It's also a good idea to communicate with your supervisor about what you would like to get out of your internship. So if you have set specific goals for yourself, share those with your supervisor early on in the internship and ask if these things seem reasonable. There is a possibility that your supervisor may say that your goals are not entirely realistic or they're not going to work out in the specific role that you're in, but it's good to make sure that you're both on the same page from the beginning about what you're hoping to get out of this opportunity and also what types of things are going to be possible in your current role. Also, this is very important. Don't be afraid to try something new in your internship. You are there to learn. Oftentimes, when starting a new position, we want to make the best impression, and we feel like that means that we need to be perfect. Your goal is not to be perfect in your internship. It's to do the best job that you possibly can while also challenging yourself to learn new things. And part of that often involves taking some risk. So it's good to communicate again with your supervisor about the things that you'd like to learn, but don't be afraid and don't hold yourself back from trying something new. Also, don't sit around and wait for your supervisor to give you assignments. Your supervisor probably will have a lot of other responsibilities that they need to manage. So in the event that you don't have anything to do, try proposing a project to your supervisor. Look around and notice if there's something that you think you could be helpful with, and then bring it up to your supervisor and ask if that might be a good project for you to work on. Your supervisor will probably be very appreciative that you're being proactive and that you're looking for opportunities where you can be of help. Another great practice in your internship is to ask for feedback. So it's good early on to ask your supervisor, excuse me, how you are going to be evaluated. Some internships have great methods for feedback already in place, while others may not. So if your supervisor does not readily offer feedback, ask for it. Again, an internship is your opportunity to learn and to grow, and getting feedback is really going to help you to do so. Part of that means practicing receiving constructive criticism. If you were only receiving positive feedback, that's not going to be very helpful for your learning. So recognize that constructive criticism is very necessary for your professional growth. So when you do receive criticism, try to pause. It can be very tempting to automatically try to offer an excuse or an explanation, but I encourage you to pause for a moment, thank your supervisor for his or her feedback, and then give yourself time to reflect on the feedback that you received and think about ways that you can grow in the future. Internships are also a wonderful opportunity for networking. This is a great chance for you to build relationships with people at all levels in the company that you are interning with. If you only spend your time talking with the other interns, you could really be missing out on relationships that you could build with people at different levels of the company. Also, ask if you can attend meetings or events. If you feel like maybe you're not being exposed to as many aspects of the company or as many people as you would like to, talk with your supervisor and see if there are some additional events that you might be able to attend to be able to meet more people. You also want to be on the lookout for potential mentors. This is not something that you're going to establish from day one at your internship, but as you are meeting others at the company, there might be other professionals who seem very willing to be of help, to offer advice. So consider, is this a person that might down the road be interested in serving as a mentor for you. And if you feel like you have established a pretty solid relationship, that might be something that you bring up with them and see if that's something they would be willing to do. It's also really valuable to stay connected with people after you complete your internship. So this includes your supervisor, this includes your colleagues, other interns, so really anyone that you develop a relationship with. LinkedIn is usually the easiest way to do this. So connecting with others and being able to kind of keep track of what they're up to. They can see what you're up to professionally. You may also want to send emails after the conclusion of your internship to certain individuals, let them know what you're doing and stay in communication with them that way. Maybe your company has different events that you can attend after you conclude your internship as a way of seeing others and still connecting. Or if there's specific individuals that you really want to make sure you maintain that relationship with, maybe you extend an offer to meet for coffee or lunch after your internship has concluded. I wanted to look a little bit deeper into a specific type of networking that I think you can do at your internship. This is called informational interviews. So an informational interview is a meeting to learn about the real life experience of someone working in a field or company that interests you. So you want to look around at your internship and see if there are people either in your own department or maybe in other departments that you think would be good to talk to. Maybe there's something you can learn from them. You want to plan on an informational interview being about 20 to 30 minutes in length. If the person you're interviewing, extends it beyond that, that's okay. You just want to be respectful of their time. You also want to make it clear that you are asking for information, not a job. An informational interview is all about learning from someone else's experience and hearing their story. So some sample questions you might want to consider. How did you get into this field? What is a typical workday like for you? What do you like and dislike about your job? What advice would you give to someone new to this field? And are there others in the company you would recommend I speak with? So these are great options for learning more about other people's roles and what their professional experience has been. Lastly, it's a great idea to keep track of your accomplishments throughout your internship. I recommend creating a document where you can keep track of your experiences. It's a lot easier if you get in the habit of doing this on a regular basis, rather than waiting for the conclusion of your internship to try to remember all of that information when you want to add it to your resume or your LinkedIn profile. It's a great idea to write down quantitative data if you do have access to any of that information, because again, this is really hard to remember after the fact. It's also a good idea to save your performance evaluations for the future. And then lastly, to keep copies of projects for your portfolio. Sometimes you may be working on projects that contain sensitive or personal information that you may not be able to share. But if you are working on projects where the information is not of a more private or sensitive nature, definitely see if you can keep copies of those to potentially share with future employers down the road. So as you embark on a new internship, again, remember, your goal in the internship is not to be perfect, it's to learn. So be open to new experiences and always do your best to present your best professional self to the employer. And you, I'm sure, will have a great internship experience.